Hi friends, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how you can configure Explicit Web Proxy or Transparent Web Proxy on PFSense open source firewall. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing that you will have to do here is you will have to click on System, go to the Package Manager, and then here you will have to search for Squid. Okay, so since I have already installed both of the package that is required for this. So the first package that is required here is Squid, and the second package is Squid Guard. So Squid is going to give us the flexibility of forward proxy, reverse proxy, and Squid Guard is going to give us a lot of flexibility in terms of blocking a URL, and we will see what are the features that you will get in Squid Guard. So once you install the package, make sure it shows up in under the installed packages. And then once you do that, once the packages are installed properly, you should be able to see the services as Squid Proxy Server or Squid Reverse Proxy. So we are going to do the forward proxy, which is going to hide the client information. So you will have to click on Squid Proxy Server. Okay. Once you do that, you will have to click on General tab, and then you will have to click on this checkbox to enable the feature. All right. And then here you will have to specify which interface is listening for the proxy connections. So I've clicked here LAN because my LAN is going to listen for all the connections, proxy connection. All the HTTP connect messages will come onto LAN. And then this is the default port number on PFSense 3128, on which the firewall will be listening for all the HTTP connect, which is basically the information from the client. And there are a lot of information, a lot of attributes that you can click or enable here, but then I'm going with the minimal configuration. So here, so if you want, you can intercept the connections, and you can present your own certificate, which basically means whenever the client will initiate the traffic, HTTPS traffic towards any server, let's say google.com. So the firewall, which is PFSense, is going to intercept that connection, and it is going to present you with its own certificate, or the Google certificate signed by the PFSense CA cert. So once he do that, then the PFSense firewall will then be able to see the content of the HTTP header. So one thing here which is very important is that you go ahead and put that particular certificate in your trust store, so that your system or the client trusts that particular CA. So the certificate, let's say you're trying to reach google.com, so the certificate provided by google.com will then be altered, or signed by the PFSense certificate. So this is the interface which is listening for all the SSL connection. So this is the interface which is going to intercept the SSL request. You don't have to specify the SSL proxy port. And then here, SSL proxy compatibility mode. By default, it will be in mod, but then if you're facing any issues with any kind of compatibility, then you can change it to intermediate, which is going to change the TLS version and the Cypher suite. And then this is the CA cert that I was talking about. So the certificate, the actual certificate of the server that the client is trying to reach will then be signed by this proxy cert, and rest of the things you don't really have to change. These are the minimal configuration that is required for the forward proxy. Once you are done, click save. Okay, so one more thing what you will have to understand here is under system, you will have to generate this certificate, which is a CA cert. So you can create, like I already have the CA cert created. This is the cert that is going to be used during the SSL interception or SSL proxy. So you can go ahead, create a test certificate. I'm going to show you. So once you have the certificate generated, this is the CA cert, you then can go ahead and change the certificate. Like I have proxy here, so you can go ahead and use test. So I'm not going to play around with the existing certificate because I have already imported the certificate to the respective cert store and the browser trusted CA list. So once this is done, so this is the minimum configuration required for the proxy to work. And another thing here is that you can have authentication. Like here, you can see here, I've created a user just by clicking on add. So once you have this user created here, you can click on authentication and you can choose local. By default, it will be none. So you can click on local, which is going to use the user that you have created here. Once that is done, so the last second tab is going to show you the information, the real-time information, the URLs that the clients are trying to reach. So I'm going to show you this. These are some of the common attributes, whereas in you can restrict some of the IPs, allow some of the subnets, whitelisting, banner host addresses, banned host addresses. These are all basic things that you can do here. I'm not going to do anything here in this particular tab. Antivirus, well, ClamAV is an open source antivirus. If you click on this, the firewall is going to download all the ClamAV database signatures so that it can detect the malicious malware in your environment. Since you're going to do a SSL interception, so you basically are going to inspect the content of the HTTP HTTPS. So you will then be able to decide whether the content is malicious or not, or whether the traffic is having any kind of um, malware or viruses during the upload or the download. So I'm not going to click here. I'm not going to enable this antivirus. If you want, you can enable this antivirus here. Well, if you click here, it is going to, update the antivirus database, which will contain the signatures to detect the malwares and the viruses. So these are some of the other configuration in terms of caching, how long you should be caching, where you should be caching. So these are, again, very simple to configure. Okay, so once you're done with this, you can go ahead and do the other settings on your clients. So I have a window client, you can see here. And one more thing, what I'm going to show you here is that I have a Pac file created here. So this is my Pac file, which is going to tell the client that 14.140.40.109 on port 3128. So this is going to tell the client that this is the proxy IP and this is the proxy port 3128. So this is a very simple proxy Pac file just for testing purpose. And this is, by the way, hosted on the PFSense firewall itself, and I have created some of the static entries here under DNS resolver. You can see here. So I'm going to override wpad.example.com to the IP address of the firewall. And then I already have the file inside the firewall, so the clients can easily download the Pac file from the PFSense firewall itself. But then it is not recommended. It is always recommended to have your Pac file on a dedicated web server. So this is the path where my Pac file is. And let's try to download this. Okay, this is because we have authentication enabled. And I believe I already have the configuration here. So you can see here, I have automatic proxy configuration URL here. So you can see here, I'm able to resolve the particular domain wpad.example.com to the PFSense Firewall interface IP, and I have the Pac file there. So I should be, you know, able to download the Pac file from the PFSense Firewall. So if you are hosting the Pac file on your PFSense Firewall, then you will have to do some configuration there as well. You will have to make sure that the certificate presented by your web server is in the trusted list. So you can see here, it is asking me for the password, the username. So I'm going to authenticate this. Okay, now it is authenticated. Since I don't trust this, so it is going to ask me, this is a different certificate presented to me from the 40K from the PFSense firewall. I'm going to accept this and I'm going to save this. So you can see here, this was the cert and it is already there in my exception. So it is not going to create any issue. So one more thing, what I'm trying to show you people is the CA cert. If you come down, so this is the cert, the CA cert that is used on the PFSense firewall. You can see here, this is a cert that I have imported into the trust list on this particular browser. So now we are good. This is the Pac file that I was talking about. So now we will try to reach some of the website. So now I'm going to show you the certificate that I was talking about. It is going to be, signed by Cisco. So it is not the original certificate that is signed by the trusted certificate authority. It is in turn is intercepted by the PFSense firewall, and then it is going to sign it with its own CA cert and keys. So the communication will look like, let me start a Wireshark. Okay, so now we are going to analyze this. Okay, so you can see here after the three-way handshake, and you can see the port here 312H, the destination port. This is the proxy port. You can see here this is the proxy port, and how the client is aware about the proxy port is through the Pac file. This is the file which is communicating this information to the web browser. And then immediately after three-way handshake, the client is sending a HTTP connect message with all the information about the URL that the client is trying to reach, along with the user agent information, which is going to be the browser information, the window, the operating system information. And then once this is communicated, it is basically the client is basically telling the PFSense firewall that it is instructing the firewall that the firewall should be establishing a SSL tunnel to the URL listed under the HTTP connect. So the communication from the client towards the proxy server, in our case PFSense, is going to be on 3128 on proxy IP. This is a proxy IP 4109 on 3128. So once this is done, there is going to be a 200 OK HTTP message, and then post that you will have a handshake from the client to the proxy IP. Okay. Once this is done, then you will start your normal data flow, and then you can see here proxy connect hostname www.youtube.com. So once that is done, this was about the Pac file configuration with authentication. So now what we'll do is we will do the manual proxy configuration. And the real-time information, you can see it here. This is the client IP trying to reach out to d2.com. So all the real-time data will be reflected here under real-time information. Since we are doing SSL interception. You can see here, this is signed by my CA cert on the firewall. You can see here again that the Wikipedia page is signed by my CA cert on PFSense, which is basically because of the interception. All right. So this was about the manual configuration. So now we will try our you can see here all the information. So this was the traffic that was initiated by the client, facebook.com. You can see here 3128, it is taking the port. And then there is a SSL connection. And the same thing can be seen here. If you expand the line, Okay, it might be because of the cache, but then again, you can see here, these are the information that I'm trying to reach. These are all Facebook sub URLs. You can see here, facebook.com. So this was about the manual proxy configuration. And then at last, what we are going to see is the transparent web proxy, whereas in there will not be any kind of configuration on any client machine. And the clients will never be able to understand if there is anybody who is doing the interception. Only if they observe their browser with the certificate alert, then they will make out that there is somebody upstreams who is doing some kind of interception. So transparent proxy is for someone who don't require any kind of configuration on the local domain. So let's try to do that. So during this particular configuration with transparent web proxy, you don't require any configuration on any client machines that you have, any endpoints that you have in your network. So if you come to the second section here, it shows transparent web proxy, transparent proxy settings. Click here, enable that. And I have checked LAN interface because it is going to listen for all the connection. So in transparent web proxy, all the connections from the client will be for port 8443. So irrespective of the port, the firewall PFSense is going to do the interception. So you don't have to have the traffic on to port 3128 to do the proxy. So we'll do this now. So these are some of the basic configuration, whereas you can exempt some of the source IPs, some of the destinations IPs from the SSL interception. So with transparent proxy, you cannot have authentication. So I'm going to disable this. So now you can see here, I'm going to enable this. Once it is done, I'll get back to your client machine. Click on no proxy. Try to clear out all the cache. So previously the traffic was on to port 3128. Now we will try to take a capture and see the difference with transparent web proxy. So you can see here 443. And the certificate is signed by the CA cert on PFSense Firewall. And you can clearly see here that there is no proxy configuration here on this particular browser. Even then, he is getting the interception. So the PFSense firewall can now inspect the SSL content and then can apply a lot of flexibilities like clamp AV signature to detect the malware, viruses, and then we can do URL filtering as well. Let's try to browse another website. So you can see here again, it is signed by Cisco. This is, by the way, in transparent mode. And the same thing, you can see it here. See here. So these are the information. These are the domains that the client is trying to reach. Now the next thing is the URL filtering. Like I said, we installed two packages. One was uh, Squid reverse proxy, forward proxy. Other was the Squid guard. So if you have this, then you can go to target category. You can create the categories. Like here, I have defined youtube.com. And then you can create a common ACL. You can click here and then define what you want to do for this particular URL. So I've given allow. For block URL, I have given deny. These are the target categories that I've created here. Block is Facebook. Allow is YouTube. So now I'm going to access this. So you can see here, I'm not able to reach out to that particular domain because I have a URL filtering in place. I guess we have covered most of the topics under proxy. We have seen the explicit web proxy and various ways in which we can have the configuration on the browser with Pac URL, with manual configuration, with auto configuration, with transparent mode proxy. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to whitelist the URL just to be very sure that everything is working fine. So now you can see I'm able to log in. I'm able to reach out to facebook.com. So that's all in this video. I tried covering all the topics in proxy. And if you have any question, leave them in the comment section. And please do subscribe to my channel, hit the like button. Stay safe. Have a good day. Bye-bye.